Good morning. Happy Thursday to all of you on this beautiful day. It is the second day of July, July 2nd, and we are gathered here together for our morning Bible study. And it's good to be with you. Go ahead and say hi to each other on Facebook if you'd like. I am still in Chicago, or actually, where am I? Prospect Heights, Arlington Heights. I'm somewhere in Chicago. I'm somewhere on a suburb of Chicago. But I will be back with you on Tuesday, live and in person, and we will have a great time together. And in that vein, tomorrow is July 3rd. It is a Friday. It's a holiday for, I guess, most agencies. And so we are not meeting tomorrow, and we're also not meeting on Monday. Monday is going to be a travel day for Jennifer and I, and Jennifer and me. And so we won't be meeting on Monday. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we will meet together on Tuesday. So that will be a time for us to get together, and we'll do this. None of this recording stuff. We'll do it live, and it'll be good to be with you again. So don't tune in tomorrow, and don't tune in Monday. Have a 4-day weekend. Celebrate the 4th. Apparently, some people don't know what the 4th of July is all about. I don't know how that's possible, but just so you know, right? It's the celebration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, right? It's a pretty important day in American history, and so probably if you meet somebody that doesn't understand what the 4th of July is, that is a sad commentary on our society. So anyway, all right. So we are, let's see, what other announcements did I have? There is worship on Sunday. You don't want to miss that one. That one will be a very, very good one. If you are looking, so my understanding is that there are no fireworks anywhere in southern Arizona except in Sarita. So you can travel down to Sarita and park on the side of the road and look at the fireworks, but you're not allowed to actually, they're not gathering a crowd in Sarita. They're just shooting off the fireworks. And as many of you may know, I am involved in the Vale Preservation Society, Colossal Fourth. I shouldn't say I'm involved. I guess I'm in charge of it. That's maybe it's. But we are not shooting off fireworks this year as part of Colossal Fourth because we realized over the summer, in March, April, that the crowds probably wouldn't be allowed. So we have not planned on having a July 4th live in person. But you can, if you're looking for fireworks, what we've done is we've recorded last year's fireworks, which we had already pre-recorded, and we've set new music to it. And so you can actually get on either a Colossal Fourth website, the Facebook page, or you can get on Vale Preservation Society Facebook page. Any one of those places will take you to the showing on July 3rd of the fireworks, and you can sit there and enjoy them. And that's for patriotic people or just people who want to see some fireworks. It's a pretty cool show, and it's something that we spent a lot of time putting that together. So I didn't, but people on the committee did. So it should be a great thing if you want to watch it. So you're welcome to watch that. Just go to the Facebook page of either a Colossal Fourth or Vale Preservation Society, and I'm sure you'll see all sorts of notices, announcements. You can sign up for it and watch it. It's a live premiere, pretty much like this is. Let's see. So that takes care of 4th of July. That takes care of Sunday worship. Again, we're not meeting Monday. So I just pray you have a safe, I pray that we can get together again in a year from now and have a really great celebration, that we're out of the coronavirus, that we've got a cure, a vaccine, a treatment, that the world is back to a new normal, whatever that new normal is, and that we can actually gather as a community and do something just really patriotic. That would be awesome for me. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And let's see. I think that's it. Today and probably Tuesday will be one of the most fascinating discussions, I think, that you'll hear as far as this Bible study goes, because it's really fascinating. So you'll want to stick around. If we don't get to it today, we'll definitely get to it on Tuesday. But there's some pretty interesting stuff. All right, so where are we in our story? Well, in the narrative, Lot and Abram. Abram is a man that God has blessed and said, you'll be a blessing. I will give you as many kids as the stars or the dust on the ground. You're going to be a very, very blessed man. Of course, he has no children at this point. And then he was in Egypt, where he kind of was stuck in Egypt, and God kind of unstuck him from Egypt. So Abram and his nephew Lot went to the land of Canaan, or headed on the way to Canaan, and they decided to separate. For whatever reason, Lot and Abram had a conflict. It could have been from the sheep herders, not enough land for the sheep and the goats, or it could have been that maybe just they were getting on each other's nerves. But they decided to part ways, and Lot went to the Jordan Valley. Abram went to Canaan, and that was kind of where we left the story, as those two together. And then earlier in Genesis chapter 14, we saw that the kings of all these different lands decided to go to battle against each other. You had 4 kingdoms against 5 kingdoms. They had this massive battle. Lot is in the land of Sodom. Well, Sodom got defeated, and so Lot was carried away, Lot and all his possessions, all his cows and goats, or sheep and goats, and slaves and women and possessions and everything. Everything that he had was carried away. And when we hear possessions, we're thinking about, his car, his house, his 401k, all the things that we consider as possessions today. But back then, possessions was not a lot of material things, okay? Because even today, you go to some of these societies around the world and you see what people's possessions are. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if Time Magazine, I think, did this once, where they went into different people's homes and they took everything out of the home and laid it out on the front porch. And of course, the opulence of the American culture, right? We have couches and TVs and computers and all this stuff. And if everything out of my house went onto the front porch, people would probably faint, because I have so much junk. But you go to some of these other little places, and people might have just 5 or 6, 10 a couple pots and pans, maybe a couple photographs. I mean, they're around the world, people do not have a lot of possessions as far as material things. So when you hear the word possessions in Genesis, we're probably not talking about a lot of things that you can hold. It's probably sheep and goats, and maybe a sheep herding staff. It's probably wives, servants. It's those types of things when they talk about possessions in the Old Testament, because people just didn't have a lot of stuff. But they had some, but it wasn't like what we have, the opulence that we have today. It just simply wasn't there. So Lot gets carried away, and he is in the land of Sodom, and then, of course, Sodom gets attacked. They lose the war, so Lot's carried away. And that's kind of where we left the story. So we wouldn't hear from Lot again, and Abram and Lot would never even see each other again, because he'd be, sold into slavery, and he'd be working hard as a slave in the kingdom that overpowered and won that war, but for a man. And we're going to go look at that man. So this is Genesis chapter 14. Oh, it's not 143. It's 14, beginning of verse 13. A man who had escaped came and reported all of this to Abram the Hebrew. So the man kind of was in that area. He saw the battle and all that sort of thing, and he knew that Lot was Abram's child or nephew, that they were friends, that they were related and relatives. So he actually goes and reports all this to Abram the Hebrew. Now, Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. Now, when Abram heard that his relative, actually his nephew, Lot, had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Now, I got to stop here, because when we think of Abram, at least, if you think of Abram, he's like a nomadic guy. He's not, you don't assume that he has a large tribe, okay? But now we find out about Abram, right? He called out 318 trained men born in his household. So this isn't women and children. This is, and it maybe isn't even all the trained, all the men. This is just the trained men born in his household, 318 of them. Have you stopped to think about how many men that is? I mean, it's a lot. But if you think that each man probably has a number of children, and there's wives, there's children. If you think of a herd of deer, right? How many mature bucks are typically in a herd? Well, one, because the rest of them kind of get driven off. They can start their own herd with a doe or whatever. But I mean, just if the massive amount of people that must have been part of Abram's tribe, of his group, is just phenomenal. Now we get a little bit about the breadth and the depth and the size of Abram's clan. It is not small. It is very, very large. Abram is a powerful force, as we'll find out as we read further, a powerful force that has some power behind it. I mean, he's almost like a mini king, or his own fiefdom. He is a man that is not to be reckoned with, right? And so when we talk about the faith of Abram and reckon to him as righteousness and following God, I mean, one of the things about Abram that's just very, very impressive is here's a man at the top of the food chain of his clan, of his tribe, and yet he strives to follow God. He strives to do what God's told him to do, and he follows God. And he and God are very Twitter-pated. That's an old Bambi term, right? But it is impressive for a man of such wealth and of such power to be in such a state with God, which probably helped him in many, many ways, because when you get to that point where you have so much, you're in charge of so much, to be able to still maintain that relationship with the creator of the universe is very, very impressive. And Abram was one of those guys. Don't think that Abram and Sarai are just these lonely two people traveling from place to place. He is a man of considerable means. And when he heard that Lot, his nephew, had been taken captive, he calls out 318 trained men. And this is another thing. I mean, how many trained men are going to actually go and fight a war against a king? There's this war going on. They know that the war's going on. You have 5 kingdoms against 4 kingdoms. And you're going to go and get involved in that? I mean, the war's over. Why would you even consider going against such a thing? And yet, they do, which also talks to the strength of command that Abram has to be able to call out. I mean, he really is like a king. He calls out, he says, you will go and we're going to rescue Lot. And the 318 men raise their hand and say, okay, I'm going. Tell me what to do. I'm going to follow you, Abram. Just absolutely mind-blowing, phenomenal that Abram would do this. And we know that Abram doesn't really even have children at this point. So these are people just born in his clan. I mean, it's like he's in charge of a group of people. He's like the, I wanted to say David Koresh, but that's a poor thing. He's basically in charge of a clan of people that follow him blindly like a king, but he has no progeny at this point. This puts a little bit more of a context on Abram, all right? So, during the night, Abram divided his men. This is verse 15. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. That's a long distance, by the way. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions together with the women and the other people. So it appears that Abram, with his 318 men, goes in the middle of the night and attacks this particular group of people where Lot is located, and they pursue them and they rout them. Routing and pursuing means what you think it means. It's basically he destroyed them. He routed them. They went after his nephew Lot, and so he attacks in the middle of the night, and probably was a surprise attack. They killed a few at the beginning, maybe even a large, maybe 50 or 60% that they were able to get at the beginning, and then others started to run away, and he sent some of his men in those directions, and he says, go and find them and rout them, get them all. And so he is able to completely destroy all of these people, and then he's able to save his nephew Lot and his possessions together with the women and the other people. So Abram is a man not to be toyed with. He is a very serious man in charge of a very serious group of people. They follow him almost blindly. It appears to me like Abram is a mini king. He's in charge of he's a duke. He has his own fiefdom. It's a mobile fiefdom, which maybe helps him a little bit because he hasn't necessarily attached himself yet to a piece of property that you want to protect. If you think, so this is a little side tangent, but if you think about why people go to war, they go to war over property, over land. I mean, that's typically the main reason why people war. It's like this Lot and Abram thing. They get to a place, they feel comfortable, but now the land isn't large enough or has enough green foliage to support Abram and Lot, and so they could have fought each other. That could have been another opportunity. Lot and Abram could have fought each other. Abram would have probably won, and then he would have continued on. But Abram understood that there's plenty of land out there, so we're going to separate. We're going to go two separate directions. But most wars that are ever fought are fought over land. And that is still today why now we fight wars for all sorts of reasons, but it is all to possess land. It always comes down to the possession of land. And Abram is a nomadic guy, so he wouldn't necessarily ever have to get into a war. His tribe can pick up and move their tents and their possessions. They can go to another place. They can find another place. Of course, eventually you run out of places to find, but that doesn't happen for centuries later. Like today, I don't know if there is any vacant land anywhere that you could go if you wanted to avoid a war. Maybe in the Amazon, great land there. Who knows where you could go? But back then there would have been plenty of opportunities. So Abram was able to kind of stay out of conflicts. But he's a large king, a large mobile king is who he is. He's not a tiger king. He's a mobile king. All right. So let's see. So he recovered all the goods and brought back his. Did we read that part? He covered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions together with women and the other people. Yeah, we did read that. Okay, so let's just continue on. Verse 17. After Abram returned from defeating Kedor Laomer, and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. So you'll remember now that Lot had been part of Sodom, and so he had recovered Lot and all the possessions, and now the king of Sodom comes out and meets him. And what is going to happen when the king of Sodom comes out to meet Abram? Well, let's just go and see. Got to forward that slide a little bit. All right. Oh, wait, another person. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him, this king of Melchizedek, a tenth of everything. Oh, and here we go. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. So this king of Sodom comes, and then we have this weird Melchizedek guy. He comes, and there's a little thing about that. But then you get back to the king of Sodom and Abram, and he says, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. Of course, there's not a whole lot of goods. Most of it is people, right? So Sodom is the one that Lot was in. And, maybe I should go back and just, let me see. Oh, here we go. I just wanted to point out to you in verse 16. Abram recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. So it's not just Lot that he rescued, but it sounds like Abram rescued other people. So it's Lot and all of kind of his people that Abram probably knew. And then there were other people that probably were in Sodom. They were taken away with their possessions in this battle. And so Abram not only rescues Lot, but he also rescues the other people. And so we get to, let's see. So the king of Sodom, in verse 21, the king of Sodom says to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. So it's I guess this would probably be, listen, let me have my people back that you rescued from here. It doesn't really talk about Lot and all that sort of thing. It's like, you keep your possessions. Maybe the possessions is Lot and his whole family. Maybe the king of Sodom saw that as Abram's possessions. But all the rest of this stuff, give me and keep the goods for yourself. And what does Abram say? Well, let's just finish that out a little bit. Let's go to verse 22. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, With raised hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me, to Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share. So this I find absolutely fascinating. So the king of Sodom says, here, you keep this. I'll take my people, but you can have the goods. And it sounds like goods might even be food here, right? Might be some leather, some of the stuff to make things with. I mean, tent goods, poles. I mean, whatever it is, there's definitely some stuff there. And Abram says, I don't want any of it. It's because I don't want you to ever tell people that the reason Abram is rich is because I gave him possessions. Abram is a very proud man, but Abram is a man who wants to be able to say to the world, the only reason why I am wealthy is because of my Lord, my God. And that is a fascinating thing, my friends, that Abram wants to give all the glory and all the credit to God. And he's willing to risk not having possessions, not growing his kingdom bigger, his fiefdom bigger, his little clan bigger. He's willing to kind of give all that to the king of Sodom so that he can say to everybody that the only reason why he has anything in this world or any wealth or any possessions or anything like that is because of the Lord God. That, my friends, is a very, very fascinating person, Abram, that he's willing to risk that to say that everything he has is from God. Now, we know as Christians that everything we have is from God. But so many times we fall into the trap to say, well, we made it because of our ingenuity or our excellence or, whatever it is. We always want to take credit for everything that it's us, right? It's all about us and what we did. But my friends, who gave you the life that you have? Who gave you the brain that you have? Who gave you the muscles who gave you the skeleton that you have? Who gave you what you are to be able to create what you have? And the answer is God. God is behind everything in our life. And it is a very mature person who is able to say, everything I have is from God, and I'm willing to risk not taking more money or more goods or possessions. I'm willing to risk giving that away, knowing that in the future God will provide. And the more mature thing is to be able to say, and I'm creating an opportunity for God to do his amazing thing in my life by giving away what I could have had. For Abram, it wasn't about the wealth. It wasn't about growing his clan bigger. I mean, I find that interesting because he's got all these trained men. He could have easily, probably taken over the whole entire Middle East by force and by power. Just think of who he is, and all these kings went to war. Well, why didn't he jump in the war? What prevented him from saying, "Hey, I want my share too"? Because when this war is over, who's gonna end up with whatever? But Abram is a man who is close to God, and he is willing to risk increased wealth because he knows that God will provide for him. And he even tells the king of Sodom that. The king of Sodom probably should listen to that. Sodom should have spent more time with God. We'll find out. He probably should have repented because once you take your eyes off of God and say it's all about me, then it's all about not only me and my goods, but my pleasure, and then once it becomes all about pleasure, you end up like a Sodom, all right? I mean, it can descend downhill very quickly. So Abram is a fascinating man, absolutely fascinating. I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten and the share that belongs to the men who went with me. Let them have their share. So in other words, Abram just wipes his hand clean. All he wants is to rescue Lot and to let God do what God's going to do in Abram's life. I mean, Abram and if you really dig deep and think about it, Abram and God are very, very close. And Abram has a very close understanding of who God is and how he's been blessed, which is just an amazing thing, absolutely amazing thing. So when you hear about Abram, don't just think that it's just him and Sarai living in a tent somewhere, maybe with a sheep and a cow. No, he is all of us. He has been blessed immensely by God, but God has called him to use that blessing that he's been given to be a blessing to the world around him, and Abram does that. Now, I just wanted to back up one little step. It's probably worth, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe we'll get to it on Tuesday. But let's just look at this weird thing. We're back in verse 18. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram. He's a priest of God Most High. Now, that God Most High is El Elyon. It's a Hebrew, very, very Hebrew name for El Elyon. And Melchizedek is a king of Salem. Now, if we go back and look through the 5 kingdoms that are fighting the 4 kingdoms, you will not find Salem there. Salem is not involved in the battle. The king from Salem is not involved in the battle. He's from somewhere else. And as a matter of fact, Salem is a precursor to Jerusalem. So he is a king in Jerusalem of El Elyon. And he brings out bread and wine. And he's a priest. Now you have to understand, there is no priestly class yet. The priestly class doesn't happen till Exodus. What the heck is a priestly class doing in the middle of Genesis 14? And who is Melchizedek? I mean, these are interesting questions that you should probably think about. And then what does he say? He says, blessed be Abraham by God Most High, El Elyon, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands. I mean, this is like, we're inserting a character into this story that was not in the story before, that is just absolutely fascinating. Oh, man, it's already time to close. I can't really talk about Melchizedek. Maybe we'll get into him on Tuesday. I don't know, because this is just very curious that he shows up on the scene and talks to Abram. Who is this guy? King of Sodom, Melchizedek. I just very curious. You just might want to think about that over the next 4 days as to who he is. And I will tell you that a lot of scholars have thought about Melchizedek and who he is. And the answer is very surprising. So we'll leave that for Tuesday. Why don't we close in prayer? Gracious God, thanks for this time together. Thanks for the blessing of your word that we can study. Lord, over the next 4 days, we as a nation will be celebrating our independence and that we are a nation. I pray that you be with our nation. It's in turmoil right now because of a lot of different things. But we were created a number of years ago and gave deference to you and your bounty and your providence in our world. And I pray, Lord, that we remember that. Be with all of us and keep us safe until we meet again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so that is the end of today. Thank you again for joining me, and God's richest blessings to you. And we will see you on Tuesday. Take care. Bye.